I think at the very strategic military level, one of the most fundamental tenets of PLA modernization has actually been validated by the Ukraine conflict, but it's also paradoxical. And let me explain what I mean. The evolving character, as we know, the nature of warfare never changes. The applications of violence to achieve a political end. But the character of warfare is constantly evolving. And what we're seeing now is an evolution of the character of warfare towards the defense as opposed to the offense. The defense or the defending nation has an advantage here. And in Europe, Russia clearly possessed an overwhelming advantage, or at least we perceived an overwhelming advantage in combat power and just sheer throw weight when compared to Ukraine. But despite this, Ukraine has been able to offset this advantage by a skillful application of asymmetric military capabilities that have been supplied by its allies and partners in this instance. Now, what we need to understand is the PLA has always perceived themselves to be the defender and the US to be the aggressor. We tend to look at it because of the Taiwan element of it as China being the aggressor and us being the defender, but that's not how they see it. They see themselves as the defender and the US as the attacker. And indeed, their entire defense modernization, emphasis on anti-access area denial, the so-called Shashogen, the assassin's mace, has been specifically focused on denying the United States the ability to project power into the Western Pacific and to prevent us from building it's always often been described as the mountains of iron. Before we go to war anywhere in the world, we build a mountain of iron in Kuwait, in Iraq, and in other places, and then we unleash this mountain of iron on whoever our foe is far from our shores. The paradox here is that while the United States is clearly the aggressor and attacker, within this paradigm, Taiwan is clearly the defender. And the Ukraine conflict, as I just mentioned, has clearly demonstrated that a well-supplied, and this is key, well-motivated defender can effectively disrupt or even defeat a clearly superior adversary. If nothing else, this defender can significantly increase the cost and length and duration of a military conflict to the detriment of the attacker. So I think when you look at the overall lesson that's being looked at here, it's the fact that, as Bonnie said, this is far more complex than they might have imagined. And Joel has talked about it as well. While they still may feel that they have an advantage as the defending nation because the US has to project power, they also must take into account that Taiwan, with the appropriate hybrid and asymmetric capabilities, could make this a far more costly conflict than they originally anticipated.